So, if you remember from the last couple of chapters, we have been thinking and talking about how the people in the book act out of character, how they might act differently than they normally would. And we think about what would make them do that. So, let's think about Sistine together for a while. I know that you and I definitely have some ideas about Sistine, right? So we know that she's what? What is she? Well, she's gutsy, definitely. Angry? Yeah. She hates being in that town. We know that about her. Well, let's keep our theory about Sistine in mind and pay attention, like thoughtful readers do, to when there are times when Sistine acts out of character. I'm going to read from chapter 12, way back in chapter 12, and I want us to think about what Sistine was doing at that time. Maybe she was acting out of character. I want you to think about what motivates Sistine to act this way. When Rob straightened back up, he saw that Sistine had picked up the carving of her. He had left it lying on his bed, intending to work on it again in the evening. He held his breath as she stared at the piece of wood. It looked so much like her, with her skinny legs and small eyes and defiant stance, that he was certain she would be angry. But once again, she surprised him. "Oh," she said, her voice full of wonder. "It's perfect. It's like looking in a little wooden mirror." She stared at it a minute more, and then carefully laid it back on his bed. Now, the author of the book, Kate DiCamillo, she talks to a bunch of kids your age, about this part of the book. And here's what some of those kids had to say. They talked about if they thought Sistine acted out of character. And one of them said, "Well, I think she was just trying to be nice for a change. Maybe she knew that Rob was holding his breath when she saw the whittled figures, so she was real nice about them." Someone else said, "I don't know that she was trying to be nice. She's too blunt to be nice. I think it's that she respects Rob because he whittles." I mean, Sistine knows about art, and she knows about Michelangelo, the Sistine Chapel painter. She respects art. That's why she was respectful of what Rob made. Then another student added, "Sistine is the only person who takes Rob seriously. I mean, she even put her hand on his rash. Ooh, that's so just ew. But she did. So she does crazy things. And she really likes Rob. Seriously. She takes him seriously. It's like once she's decided to be his friend, she's really sincere." When we read the next chapter, let's think about some instances where a character might have acted out of place, and we'll think about why they would have done that, what motivated them to do it. 29. Rob and his father worked with shovels to dig a hole that was deep enough and wide enough and dark enough to hold the tiger. And the whole time, it rained. "We got to say some words over him," said Willie Mae, when the hole was done and the tiger was in it. "Can't cover up nothing without saying some words." "I'll say the poem," said Sistine. She folded her hands in front of her and looked down at the ground. "Tiger, tiger, burning bright, in the forests of the night," she recited. Rob closed his eyes. "What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry?" Sistine continued. "In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire?" To Rob, the words sounded like music, but better. His eyes filled up with tears again. He worried that now that he had started crying, he might never stop. That's all I remember, Sistine said after a minute. There's more to it, but I can't remember it all. You say something now, Rob, she said. I don't got nothing to say, said Rob, except for I loved him. Well, said Willie Mae, what I got to say is I ain't had good experiences with animals in cages. She reached into her dress pocket and took out the wooden bird and bent down and laid it on top of the tiger. That ain't nothing, she said to the tiger. Just a little bird to keep you company. She stepped back away from the grave. Rob's father cleared his throat. He hummed softly, and Rob thought he was going to sing, but instead he shook his head and said, I had to shoot him. I'm sorry, but I had to shoot him. For Rob. Rob leaned into his father, and it felt, for a minute, like his father leaned back. Then Rob picked up his shovel and started covering the tiger with dirt. As he filled the grave, something danced and flickered on his arm. Rob stared at it, wondering what it was, and then he recognized it. It was the sun, showing up in time for another funeral. I'm sorry I made you do it, Sistine said to Rob when he was done. He wouldn't be dead if I hadn't made you do it. It's all right, Rob said. I ain't sorry about what I did. We can make a headstone for him, said Sistine, and we can bring flowers and put them on his grave, fresh ones, every day. She slipped her hand into his. I didn't mean what I said before about you being a sissy, and I don't hate you. You're my best friend. The whole way back to the Kentucky Star, Rob held onto Sistine's hand. He marveled at what a small hand it was, and how much comfort there was in holding on to it. And he marveled, too, at how different he felt inside, how much lighter, as if he had set something heavy down and walked away from it, without bothering to look back. I believe that was a very touching funeral, and they all had prepared something to say or do. And I think they paid some very good respects to that tiger. And I want you to think about a word that the author used at the end of the chapter. The author said that when Sistine and Rob turned and walked back, she slipped her hand into his, and she told him that he was her best friend, and that she doesn't hate him, and that she didn't mean that he was a sissy. And the author used the word marveled. Rob marveled at what a small hand it was, and how much comfort there was in holding on to it. If someone feels like they're marveling at something, it means that whatever that something is has a lot of wonder and astonishment. Rob was filled with wonder, and he was astonished. Like he was surprised that Sistine wanted to hold his hand. And he was filled with wonder and wanting to know more about that feeling. And I'm sure he was very excited feeling it. And he marveled, too, at how different he felt inside. How much lighter. As if he had set something heavy down and walked away from it without bothering to look back. Your job is to tell why Rob marveled. Why did he marvel at Sistine's hand, how small it was, and at the same time how much comfort there was holding it? Why did he marvel about how different he felt inside, lighter, like he dropped something off his shoulders that he was carrying, and he didn't even bother to look back at it as he walked away? You tell why. It's your opinion. It's not going to be wrong, but you have to use details and really explain yourself. At least 3 sentences. Enjoy.